Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Welcome back to our science class, and to all my Muslim students, I would like to wish you Ramadan Mubarak, happy fasting, and to all of you, please stay safe at home. So today's lesson is just a continuation from our on to chapter 3, which is transport system. In previous lesson, you did learn basically like an introduction to this transport system. Why is it important? Why do we need transport system, especially for the complex organism like human? So in today's lesson, subtopic 3.2, we're just going to continue to learn about blood circulatory system in vertebrates. If you still remember, there are like 5 types of vertebrates that you did learn in Form 2, but in today's lesson, we're just going to focus on human. Alright, so before we move on, let's just do a little bit of a recap. The first one is the function and importance of transport system, which you have learned in previous lesson. You've learned that transport system is very crucial, it's very important in order for you to get the nutrient oxygen, and in order for the carbon dioxide and other waste product to be eliminated from the system. Okay, and also for other organisms like plants, they need the transport system in order for the water, mineral, food and other nutrients to be transported to all parts of the body. Okay, that's why it's very important. If you don't have transport system, you won't be able to stay alive, especially for complex organism. Number 2, complex organism requires specialized transport system called blood circulatory system. You've learned that simple organism like unicellular organism such as amoeba, paramecium, they can actually rely on simple diffusion. But for complex organism like us human, we are multicellular. We have a larger volume, meaning that it will decrease the surface area to volume ratio. The surface area itself is not enough for we cannot rely on diffusion only for the oxygen and other things like carbon dioxide to be transported and to be eliminated from our system. We need a specialized transport system in order to help the oxygen to be carried out to all parts of the body. We cannot rely on diffusion. Number 3, blood flow continuously in blood vessel to all parts of the body in one complete cycle through the heart, meaning that there's no such thing as reverse direction. Tak boleh tiba-tiba dia pergi depan, tiba-tiba nak patah balik lah. No, because it moves in one complete cycle in our circulatory system through the heart. Okay, we will see how the heart helps to pump the blood to the rest of the body. Okay, so in today's lesson, our learning objective, at the end of this lesson, you should be able to, number 1, correctly identify the structure of human heart. Number 2, explain the function of human heart component. Basically, we're just going to focus on human heart. I'm trying to keep it short and sweet, so you just have to know the structure, okay, and then the function of all these components on human heart. So, blood circulatory system in human. It involves circulation and blood which is pumped from the heart to all parts of the body through specialized blood vessels, and those specialized blood vessels include arteries, veins, and capillaries. As you can see in the diagram here, it shows the blood circulatory system in human, in your body. It's a simplified diagram. So you see here the heart is located in between of the lungs and underneath the sternum of the rib cage. Okay, and this heart is connected to the lung, of course, because they need that oxygen and carbon dioxide from the lung, and the heart is also connected to the rest of the body. Okay, the heart will help to pump the blood to the rest of the body, and this heart connected to a blood vessel, specialized blood vessel. We have artery. Artery is shown in red color here. Okay, so artery carries, we call it oxygenated blood. What is oxygenated blood? It basically blood that has high concentration of oxygen. Okay, oxygenated blood that has high concentration of oxygen. And then we also shown in blue is the vein, which help carries the deoxygenated blood. Kalau artery carries oxygenated blood, vein help carries deoxygenated blood. What is deoxygenated blood? It's basically blood that contain high concentration of carbon dioxide. Okay, artery, high concentration of oxygen, vein, high concentration of carbon dioxide. That will go back to the heart and to the lung and will be exhaled to the external. And then when we inhale oxygen, it will go to the lung and then to the heart, and then the artery will bring it to the rest of the body. Okay, but except for pulmonary artery, it carries deoxygenated blood, and except for pulmonary vein, it carries oxygenated blood. Okay, we will see later. Right, so this is the structure of human heart. Basically, our heart contains 4 chambers. Ada 4 chambers. Number 1 is, we call it right atrium. Number 2 is right ventricle here. Number 3 is the left atrium. And number 4, we have the left ventricle. Okay, ada 4 chamber. So, please notice that this part is the right side and this part is the left side. Because even though when you're facing it right now, this one is actually your left, right? And this one is actually your right. But you have to imagine it when it's in position inside your body. Okay, that's why this part is the right one and this part is the left one. Okay, so we have here we call it right atrium. Kalau bahagian atas we call it atrium, and here bahagian bawah we call it ventricle. Okay, we have right atrium, right ventricle, and then for the left side sama juga, we have left atrium, and then we have left ventricle. Okay, so 4 chamber. Next one, the heart is also connected to 5 type of blood vessel that carries the blood in and out of the heart. Number 1 here is the vena cava. We have 2 type of vena cava. Which is here is we call it inferior vena cava, bahagian bawah, and then bahagian atas we call it superior vena cava. Okay, number 1 inferior vena cava, number 2 is superior vena cava. Why this one is superior? Because it carries the deoxygenated blood from the head and the upper extremities. But if the inferior vena cava is from the abdomen and lower extremities. Okay, ni daripada atas, ni daripada bawah. It carries deoxygenated blood into the heart. Okay, and then we also have, after the deoxygenated blood from these two enter the right atrium and then into the right ventricle, it will go into the third blood vessel, which is pulmonary artery. Okay, that's what I mentioned previously. Artery actually carries oxygenated blood, except for pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery, it carries deoxygenated blood. It will go to the lung. Okay, it will transfer the deoxygenated blood from the heart into the lungs. Okay, so we have 3 already, right? Inferior vena cava, superior vena cava, pulmonary artery. And then when the blood get the oxygen from the lung, it will go back to the heart through this, the 4th blood vessel, we call it pulmonary vein. Okay, previously I said vein supposedly carries deoxygenated blood, right? So except for pulmonary vein, it carries oxygenated blood from the lung into the heart. Okay, so oxygenated blood coming from the pulmonary vein, it will go to the left atrium, it will go to the left ventricle, and then it will pump into this last blood vessel, we call it aorta. Okay, so this aorta, it will carry the oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body. That's how you get the oxygen. Okay, and then we also have, if you notice these short-like things, we call it valve. Ataupun dalam bahasa Melayu, we call it injak. On the right side, it's this valve, it separates the right atrium and right ventricle. We call it tricuspid valve. Okay, remember, right, we call it tricuspid valve. Right, tri. Okay, tricuspid valve on the right side. On the left side, we call it bicuspid valve. Here, okay, it separates our left atrium and left ventricle. Okay, so the third valve we call it is the same on both sides. That make sure the blood does not go back into the ventricle. We call it semilunar valve. Okay, this semilunar valve basically is separate the blood vessel with the ventricle here, so that the blood won't go in. It won't go in the reverse direction, go back to the ventricle. We go in one direction only. Okay, so that's basically the structure of the heart. We have 4 chambers: right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. We have 5 blood vessels: inferior vena cava, superior vena cava, pulmonary artery, pulmonary veins, and aorta. And then you have 3 types of valve, which is tricuspid valve on the right, bicuspid valve on the left, and semilunar valve that separate the blood vessel with the ventricle. Move on. So, as you can see here, sorry, I forgot about the septum here. Okay, there's another one which is septum. Septum is basically in the middle. It separates the right and left chambers so that the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood won't mix up. Okay, so you see here, right atrium has thin muscular wall. Dia punya dinding dia nipis saja. The function is to carry deoxygenated blood from the whole body except for the lung, of course, and it will enter the right atrium through the superior and inferior vena cava. Okay, so the right atrium, it will receive the deoxygenated blood from both superior and inferior vena cava, which is from the whole part of the body. And then when the deoxygenated blood enter the right atrium, it will contract. Right atrium ni dia akan contract, causing the blood, the deoxygenated blood, to fill in the right ventricle. Okay, and then the tricuspid valve, it will only allow the flow of blood in only one direction from right atrium to right ventricle. Okay, kalau tak ada valve ni, the blood might go back daripada ventricle to atrium, which is we cannot allow that to happen. It only has to move in one direction from atrium to ventricle. Okay, and then the right ventricle has a thicker muscular wall compared to the atrium, because this ventricle, it will contract so that the deoxygenated blood will be forced into the pulmonary artery and will be carried into the lung. Okay, next one. So semilunar valve here, semilunar valve is at the pulmonary artery and aorta. It will ensure the blood flows only in one direction and not back to the ventricle. Okay, here and here on both sides ada semilunar valve. It will ensure the blood flow in one direction, not coming back to the ventricle. And then we have also left atrium. Left atrium here is thin, sama juga macam right atrium. It's not thick as the ventricle. So the left atrium, it will receive the oxygenated blood from the lungs through the pulmonary vein, and then the left atrium, it will contract in order to force the oxygenated blood into the ventricle, the left ventricle. Okay, and then the bicuspid valve, sama juga macam tricuspid valve, it will only allow the flow of blood in one direction, which is from left atrium to ventricle. There's no such thing as from left ventricle back to the atrium. We cannot let that to happen, okay? So, and then we also have left ventricle. If you notice here, the left ventricle is thicker than the right ventricle. Okay, this has the thickest muscular wall because the left ventricle, it will contract. It will need that high pressure in order to force the oxygenated blood flow into the aorta and to the rest of the body. Okay, that's why it really needs that high pressure in order to force that blood to carry the oxygen to the rest of your body. Okay, and then last but not least, we have the septum here. Septum here. So septum is basically a muscular wall which separate the left side and the right side of the heart. It will prevent the oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood from mixing between the two. Okay, so yes, this is just an animation showing a contraction of the heart. As you can see here, when the atrium, here is the atrium, and then here is the ventricle. Okay, sama juga macam here is the atrium and then here is the ventricle. You see here the wall of the the right ventricle is thinner. Okay, or I would say that this one is thicker than this part. It's because this one will carry the oxygen to the rest of the body. Okay, this one is a pulmonary artery that we carries the deoxygenated blood back to the lung. This is the aorta. It's not that clear here. Okay, basically this is just animation of the contraction of the heart. Okay, bila atas contract, they akan push the blood into the ventricle, and then the ventricle pula yang akan contract to force the blood into the blood vessel and to the rest of the body as well, and then for this part to the lung juga. Alright, so that's all for today. I hope you enjoy our lesson today about the structure and function of the heart. If you do have any question, please ask and answer the assessment question to test your comprehension level. Alright, so thank you so much. Bye. Assalamualaikum.